Hello, I'm Matthew Bolduin, the EU's Road Safety and Sustainable Mobility Coordinator, and I'm very sorry not to be with you in Sofia for the wonderful conference on Vision Zero for the Balkans. That's what you always say in recorded messages, but I'm really sorry because I was planning to come to Sofia to reflect on the time I've spent, the 3.5 years I've spent as the Road Safety Coordinator since I launched that role in Sofia with a speech back in October 2018. As it turns out, this speech, this recorded message, is the last speech that I shall be giving as the Road Safety and Sustainable Mobility Coordinator because I am at short notice moving on to another job in DG Energy, working to try to replace Russian gas in the European network. Of course, that's an important issue for Bulgaria too, so I shall remain in very close touch with you in Sofia, but not, as it turns out, on road safety and sustainable mobility. And that's a regret because I've loved this job and I want to use these short remarks to you to reflect on some of the things we've managed to achieve together with your forbearance. When we look at the road safety numbers, which is always important when we talk about moving towards Vision Zero, it's clear that the road deaths have continued to fall in recent years, not as fast as we would like, but they fell especially during the pandemic, but mainly again because of lower traffic levels. The fact remains, however, we still have 20,000 fatalities every year. This is still unacceptably high. Road safety indeed is the forgotten pandemic. And if you look at it at a global level, that's unquestionably so. We have 1.3 million people a year dying on our global roads. That cannot continue. For the European Union, we published the preliminary figures for 2021. Unfortunately, the very significant falls we saw in 2020 because of COVID have not been maintained in 2021. Road deaths are up again for the EU as a whole by 5%, but that is still a significant advance. They are still down by 13% compared to the last pre-pandemic year of 2019. The fact remains we still have a lot to do to achieve our goal of halving road deaths by 2030. And if we're going to get there, we need to remember that achieving Vision Zero is a joint responsibility. European, national, regional and local authorities working together with the police, with the health services and with all road users. Let's take a look at Bulgaria, which was the example I planned to use. But let's also remember that this is a conference about the Balkans. And it's worth remembering that 3 of the 4 EU countries that are suffering the most from road deaths and serious injuries are in the Balkans. And I use that phrase carefully. We're not talking about a blame game. Bulgaria is not to blame for having a high level of road deaths and casualties. It is you're suffering. We want to work with you. We are in solidarity with you in acting against this. Indeed, our friends and partners in the Western Balkans community are suffering even more, but I'm delighted now that through the transport community that they too are stepping up their efforts, and we're very pleased to be working with the broader Balkan community. On Bulgaria, you had 560 road deaths in 2021, 81 deaths per million inhabitants. That's the second highest in the EU. But it has come down. The longer term trend is that you've shown a 40% reduction over the last decade. A 26% fall. Your road deaths fell by 1/4 in 2020. They rose again quite quickly in 2021, but still we have this big gap between the pre-pandemic year and now. We need to lock that in and maintain that progress. We've also seen a trend towards an increase in the number of elderly victims. That's something to look at. And I would also urge you to continue to pay close attention to your pedestrian deaths, which alone account for more than half of fatalities in urban roads. That's a big number and one worth paying careful attention to. But I applaud the efforts that you're making in Bulgaria. And what I really like is that although you're proud at the achievements you've made over the last decade, coming down by 40%, you are not satisfied with that, and you're determined to climb the rankings. And if you look at other countries, including neighbor countries such as Greece and other countries in the south of Europe, it is possible to make big progress on road safety. This doesn't have to be a permanent state of affairs. I do urge you to continue with your efforts. I also know that your conference in Sofia wants to focus on the role of children and young people in road safety. And let us recall the dreadful statistic, and I use that word advisedly, that globally road crashes are the leading cause of death for children and young people aged between 5 and 29 years old. It's not global diseases such as AIDS or tuberculosis or malaria or diarrhea, which is killing our kids. It is road deaths. That is a terrible state of affairs. Children and young people must be able to make their way safely to school, to universities, or simply to go out and have fun. If they're not able to use the streets safely, we are failing them in our work. In the past, our efforts have focused on child safety, making the children safer inside the car. We've made great progress with things like child seats, but we now need to also think about road safety outside the car and remember that children are amongst the most vulnerable road users. And again, if they can't take a bike, if they can't walk to school, we're failing them in our efforts. Please continue to push on making your cities safer, and by doing so, you'll also be making the life you're making life a lot easier for children and young people, as well as making them safer. I want to say a word about the EU policy framework, which we continue to push for road safety, and it's very much part of the Vision Zero approach. We call it the SAFE system. The SAFE system says that we need to look at all parts of road safety and make sure they're working in harmony, in a layered and coordinated approach. We can't just count on one factor. For example, we need to make our vehicles safer. We have, I think, progressively, and I'll say more about that. We also need to make sure the infrastructure, the road infrastructure, is safer. We need to ensure that there is safe road use, including safe speeds. That's a very important factor. We know that speed is a major factor in road safety. And last but not least, we need to ensure that post-crash care works so that the people who are sadly involved in a crash don't have to suffer more serious injuries or indeed to die from that crash if we can get our post-crash care right. So if you think of it in this context, it's about pulling all the factors together, producing a common and coordinated approach to make road safety better overall. We also, I think, need to think about how we can bring our EU goals better in line with the national goals in both directions. And I'm very pleased that we're now seeing a number of national road safety strategies and action plans that are aligned with the EU framework. Again, around the safe system, around targets. 50% reduction in fatalities by 2030 is the EU target, and I'm delighted to see so many countries, including Bulgaria, taking that up. Key performance indicators, I'll say more about that. Involving stakeholders, dividing the responsibilities carefully within the member state. All of these things are vital. Combining the safety and sustainability agenda. We're all acting now on climate change, but if we can't make sustainable mobility safe, we won't be able to keep people walking and cycling because it won't feel safe to do so. When I look at Bulgaria specifically, we very much welcome the new National Road Safety Strategy for 2021 to 2030 and the very detailed and good action plan that you've come forward for 2021 to 23. I do urge you to keep up implementation. Rigorous implementation is essential if you're going to close that gap with member states. And you need to build on your road safety state agency, which you set up relatively recently, and continue to use them effectively as the lead agency for road safety. I mentioned key safety performance indicators, KPIs or sometimes SPIs in road safety. We have 8 of them. They're an integral part of the EU's road safety policy framework for 2021 to 2030. We will be presenting the first KPI data at our results conference in October, followed by the final General Assembly of the baseline project. I am delighted that Bulgaria has been participating so actively in the baseline project and looking forward to seeing the first data set. We've just secured additional funding under the Connecting Europe facility to drive baseline forward, and we now want to involve all 27 member states. We will review the KPIs as we go along, but in principle we want to keep the same set and pilot some new ones. And it really is great that Bulgaria is participating so actively in this. It underpins our overall death reduction targets, and it encourages member states, I think, to work together in a very productive way. We're also, of course, committed to continuing to act vigorously on areas of our competence at the EU level. Just to cite three recent examples of what we've been doing, we've the General Vehicle Safety Regulation, including the detailed implementing rules. All of these has been adopted. Intelligent speed assistance, that's been a major win in terms of enabling cars to drive much more easily at speed limits. We've worked further on alcohol interlock installation, warnings about driver drowsiness, automatic emergency braking. All of these are part of the new General Vehicle Safety Regulation, which I think are making lives inside cars and increasingly outside cars much safer. More recently, we've revised our 10T regulation, focusing on connections between the modes in different transports, between ports and airports, and indeed urban nodes. We're enhancing road safety as part of that, with a stronger focus on infrastructure, bridges and tunnels. And as part of that, also, we've brought forward a new urban mobility framework with road safety. One of the key performance indicators we'll be measuring in the urban nodes, the 424 cities right across the European Union, that are a key part of our urban mobility framework. We've also offered guidance, for example, on the safe use of micro-mobility devices, which are, I think, a growing trend on Europe's streets. But we're working on plans for the future as well. We're currently working to revise the EU Driving Licence Directive and the Cross-Border Enforcement Directive. Public consultations opening very soon, and we're planning to adopt these pieces of legislation in the European Union by the end of this year. Next year, 2023, we'll come forward with a roadworthiness package, which I think will also be, a vital way of ensuring that our vehicles are safe and fit for purpose as they roll forward through their working lives. We're reflecting on guidance on alcohol limits and on distraction. There's plenty of work going ahead at the European level. But very importantly, one of the things I've learned as EU Road Safety Coordinator is it is not just about the legislation that we enact. There are many things we can do together. And here I want to mention some wonderful programs which I've been very happy to work with closely in the last few years. The European Road Safety Charter, the Excellence in Road Safety Awards, including now the Urban Road Safety Awards. We've got terrific cross-border transport police cooperation through Roadpol, and we work very well at the official level, I think, now through the high-level group on road safety. And I was delighted to welcome your new Bulgarian member in the meeting we had just last month. But I want to particularly draw your attention to the EU Road Safety Exchange, where Bulgaria has been a terrific and enthusiastic partner with Austria and the Netherlands. You've looked at ways to learn from the success that they've had. And they've been, I think, very active too in sharing best practices in road safety. I'm very pleased to see your activity, and I really urge you to continue that. I think it's been a tremendous step forward for road safety, and it's a great example of, if you like, the soft power that the European Union can exercise. Another form of soft power, of course, is through funding. And here I'm very pleased that we've done quite a lot to support Bulgarian road safety efforts. You've benefited from the co-funding of 9 million euros, which has gone to the Roads Infrastructure Agency in the 2018 CEF call for proposals. We've also provided a tremendous amount of funding to road safety projects through Horizon Europe and through urban mobility and through connected and cooperative automated mobility. And more generally, we're reaching out across the world. We're using the new Neighbourhood Development and International Cooperation Instrument to fund the UN Road Safety Fund platform, which I've had the honour to co-chair, and we've managed to implement in Africa the implementation of recommendations on the EU-AU task force. So again, we can use funding as a way to deliver on our shared objectives, and I'm proud to have played a part in that, and very pleased that Bulgaria has benefited as well from these actions. Finally, I just want to say how much I've appreciated the cooperation with member state authorities, including in the Balkans and of course, including in Bulgaria. We can and we must do better on road safety, but we need to do it together. We need to do it by working together at the local level, at the national level, at the European, and indeed the global level. Let's try to ensure that in the future, road safety is no more the forgotten pandemic. I'm leaving this job now, again, with a lot of regrets. The road safety fight goes on. I've loved doing this job, and I'm sorry I will not be doing it with you any longer. But please, I ask you to continue with your work. Do it for your citizens, for the citizens of the Balkans. We can and we must ensure that road safety is no longer the forgotten pandemic. Thanks for your attention, and thanks for working with me over the years.